The Roman Empire never fell. This is the shocking truth that the Church has hidden for centuries. While you go about your life normally, biblical prophecies about Rome are being fulfilled before your eyes, and almost no one is noticing. Think about it. Why do so many Roman symbols still dominate our governments? Why do world leaders continue to bow to the Vatican? The answer is in the scriptures that many pastors are afraid to explain. Look around. The Roman imperial eagles, Latin, in, institutions of power, the laurel wreaths, the obelisks, the judicial system. All of these are not just historical coincidences. They are pieces of a prophetic puzzle that reveal something terrifying. Rome never truly lost its hold on the nations. Daniel saw this more than 2,500 years ago, when he had visions about a terrifying beast unlike all others. A beast that would devour the entire earth, that would be mortally wounded, but whose wound would be healed. The prophet saw Rome transforming, adapting, evolving from an earthly empire into something much more sinister and lasting. And guess what? We are living in the exact historical moment in which this transformation is reaching its peak. Revelation clearly speaks of the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth, a city built on 7 mountains. Who else could it be but Rome? John wrote this while being persecuted by the Roman Empire. And now, this same city continues to exercise overwhelming spiritual, political and financial power over the entire world, exactly as predicted in the prophecies. Have you ever wondered why Rome is the only city in the world that has a state within it with global diplomatic status? Why do leaders of all nations line up to have an audience with the Pope? Why are the symbols of this ancient power literally printed on the money you use every day? The connection is clear. Daniel's fourth beast, the Roman Empire, has transformed into a global power that operates behind the scenes, preparing the ground for the Antichrist, who will emerge from that same system. The scriptures make this clear, but few have the courage to talk about it openly. Why? Because this truth exposes the plans of those who control the current world system. It's not mere theory. It's biblical prophecy unfolding before our eyes. The beast system is being implemented gradually, disguised as modernization, globalization, unification, digital currencies, centralized control, the erosion of national borders. Everything is converging towards a single world government, exactly like Rome did, only on a global and more sophisticated scale. This directly affects you, your freedom, your family, your eternal future. Time is running out. The signs are everywhere. Daniel's prophecy about Rome and the Antichrist is closer to being fully fulfilled than most people would ever imagine. And most alarmingly, while most Christians are distracted by superficial matters, Rome's millennial plan continues to stealthily advance. The pieces are moving on the prophetic board, and you need to understand what is really happening to avoid being fooled. In this video, I will reveal what the Bible really says about Rome's role in the last days. I will show the prophetic connections that many religious leaders are afraid to address. And most importantly, I will explain how you can prepare for the events that are about to shake the world as we know it. Imperial symbols dominate our governments, currencies and institutions, not by chance but as prophetic fulfillment. When you really see this ancient conspiracy, it becomes impossible to see the world in the same way. Such a powerful revelation cannot remain hidden. It must reach every person who seeks to understand the signs of the times. Click the like button now and break down the barriers that prevent this urgent truth from spreading. Daniel prophesied about a terrible beast that would dominate the earth until the end. Rome, transformed exactly as predicted. The mortal wound was healed as the political empire was converted into global spiritual power. This knowledge has been suppressed because it threatens established religious structures. Your curiosity about this forbidden message shows that you are one of the few who still question official narratives. Share now in the comments what you already suspected about this Roman continuity today. The city of 7 hills today exerts more global influence than in its imperial heyday. This hidden control paves the way for the Antichrist, while most remain mesmerized by distractions. Time is running out quickly, and the prophecies are accelerating before our eyes. You were directed to this video for a divine reason. You are part of the remnant chosen to know the full truth in these last days. Sign up now and turn on all notifications to receive every crucial revelation that will be exposed in this prophetic series. The Roman Empire never fell. This bombshell. Truth has been hidden for centuries, but the evidence is everywhere, hiding in plain sight. Have you noticed the Roman symbols that still rule our world? The imperial eagles on government buildings, Latin in the courts, the obelisks in world capitals. All of this reveals a prophetic conspiracy that few have the courage to expose. While you went about your daily life believing the official story, global powers continued to operate under the influence of Rome, just as the Bible prophesied. Daniel's prophecy reveals a terrible beast, unlike all others, that would rule the world until the end of time. This is not any ordinary nation, but a power that would transform and adapt throughout the centuries. Rome never disappeared, it just changed its shape. The mortal wound has been healed, and today its power manifests itself through global structures that control entire nations. Think about it. Why do so many Roman symbols still adorn our institutions of power? Why do world leaders continue to bow to the Vatican? Why do the political, judicial, and economic systems of almost all Western nations follow the Roman model? This is no coincidence, but the exact fulfillment of biblical prophecies that many pastors are afraid to explain. Revelation clearly speaks of the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth, a city built on 7 mountains. Who else could it be but Rome? John wrote this prophecy while being persecuted by the Roman Empire. The connection is undeniable for anyone who has eyes to see. This millennia-old plan has been unfolding in slow motion, preparing the world for the rule of the Antichrist, who will emerge from this same resurrected Roman system. The history we were taught in schools is incomplete, distorted to hide the prophetic truth. Rome did not fall, it transformed, first in a religious power, then in a global system of control that today permeates all aspects of society. The international financial institutions, the global courts, the world organizations, all follow the Roman imperial model and converge to fulfill the prophecies of the last days. This revelation is so powerful that global powers do everything they can to suppress it. They know that when true Christians understand these prophetic connections, they will recognize the signs of the times and will be prepared to resist the ultimate deception. The information you are receiving right now is literally capable of changing your eternal destiny and protecting your family from what is to come. Over the next few minutes, I'll lay out irrefutable evidence about how Rome continues to rule the modern world, how the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation are being fulfilled right now, and how you can discern the signs most people ignore. This message is urgent and vital for all who seek the truth in these last days. You were divinely directed to this video because you are part of the chosen remnant to know the full truth about the end times. This prophetic revelation about Rome shook my life and completely transformed my understanding of the scriptures. I'm sure it will have the same impact on you. The power of this truth is so transformative that I need to know you are understanding the gravity of this message. Type "awaken" in the comments now to show that your eyes are opening to this bombshell revelation about the Roman Empire in recent days. Official history tells us that Rome fell in 476 AD when the last emperor was deposed. But that's just the illusion they want us to believe. The prophetic truth is much more surprising. Daniel saw 4 great empires that would dominate the world: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The first 3 were completely replaced, but the 4th, Rome, would be different. The Bible clearly indicates that this empire would transform, but would maintain its influence until the end time. Look at the physical evidence. The legal system of virtually all Western nations is based on Roman law. Our government architecture still imitates Roman temples and palaces. Our universities still teach Latin as the foundation of academic knowledge. Our titles and government positions still carry Roman names: senator, mayor, capital. Even our calendar and the names of the months were established by Roman emperors. Rome's impact never went away. It just evolved into more sophisticated forms of control. Daniel's prophecy is clear. The 4th beast would be different from all the previous ones. It would not disappear completely like the others. It would be terrible, amazing, and extremely strong, devouring the entire earth. This is exactly the pattern we see. Roman power survived the fall of the political empire, transformed itself through the state church during the Middle Ages, and today operates through global institutions that control finance, law, and government around the world. The statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream, interpreted by Daniel, clearly shows this. Continuity. The feet of iron mixed with clay represent the final phase of the 4th empire, Rome, which would last until a stone cut without hands, the return of Christ, destroyed all earthly kingdoms. This prophecy never mentioned a fifth world empire replacing Rome. On the contrary, it indicates that Rome would continue in a modified form until the end. Historian Edward Gibbon, in his monumental work, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, documented how Roman institutions survived and transformed after the so-called fall. The legal code, the administrative structures, even the positions and titles, everything was preserved and incorporated by subsequent powers. Rome did not fall, it metamorphosed. The title Pontifex Maximus, used by Roman emperors as high priests, was later adopted by popes. Legions were replaced by other types of armies. The Roman Senate found new parallels in modern parliaments. Trade routes were preserved. Even the dates of pagan festivities were maintained, only with new Christian names. The transformation was meticulously planned to maintain control while appearing to change. Even more amazing, the Bible itself describes how this power would be deadly wounded, but its mortal wound would be healed. Rome received an apparently fatal blow in 476 AD, but re-emerged in new forms. First as papal power, then through the Holy Roman Empire, and now through global institutions that continue to promote the Pax Romana, a centralized world. Government just like at the height of the empire. In light of this revelation, current world events take on a whole new prophetic meaning. European unification, international courts, global financial institutions, all represent the final phase of the Roman transformation predicted by Daniel. The prophesied 10 horns are forming right now through alliances and power blocks that no one is connecting to the prophecies. The story is not over. It is being fulfilled before our eyes. When you truly understand that Rome never fell, but only transformed as the prophecies predicted, your worldview changes completely. Current events cease to be coincidences and reveal themselves as parts of an ancient plan unfolding precisely as the Bible warned. This prophetic perspective opens your eyes to recognize the signs that most ignore. Share in the comments which aspect of this Roman transformation you had already noticed in our current society, even without realizing the prophetic connection. Daniel 7 contains one of the most frightening prophecies in the Bible, a vision so shocking that it left the prophet himself troubled in spirit. He saw 4 beasts emerging from the sea, each representing a world empire, but the 4th beast was absolutely terrifying. Terrible, awesome, and extremely strong. She had iron teeth, bronze nails, and devoured, tore apart, and trampled on her victims. This was not just another nation. It was a destructive power unlike anything the world had ever seen. Historians and biblical scholars agree that this 4th beast represents the Roman Empire. But the prophecy reveals something even more disturbing. This beast would have 10 horns, and among them would appear another little horn that would speak arrogant words and wage war against the saints. This blasphemous power would continue until the final judgment. Rome would not disappear. It would transform into an even more dangerous system that would persecute God's true people until the end. Time. What makes this prophecy even more haunting is its historical accuracy. Daniel described this beast as having teeth of iron. And what was the metal that symbolized Rome? Iron. The Roman legions were known for their iron weapons that conquered the known world. The prophet saw this centuries before Rome became a world power, and the description of this beast, devouring and tearing to pieces, perfectly reflects the brutality with which Rome crushed any resistance to its rule. But the most crucial part of this prophecy for us today is that this beast, Rome, would continue to exercise power until the Ancient of Days came and established his eternal kingdom. There would be no fifth world empire replacing Rome completely. On the contrary, the Roman system would evolve, transform its appearance, but maintain its controlling essence until the return of Christ. Daniel saw that the 10 horns represented 10 kings or kingdoms that would arise from this empire. After the political fragmentation of Rome, Europe actually divided into multiple kingdoms, and among them arose a little horn with eyes like those of a man and a mouth that spoke arrogantly, a religious political power that assumed the authority of the ancient empire. This power would think to change times and laws and persecute God's true followers for a time, times, and half a time, 12 and 60 prophetic years. The transformation of Rome from a purely political empire to a religious political power perfectly fulfilled this part of the prophecy. The same system, in a new guise, continued to control kings and nations, mixing spiritual authority with temporal power, exactly as Daniel predicted. But the prophecy goes even further, showing that this system would evolve again in the last days into a final form that would prepare the way for the Antichrist. The 10 horns in the final phase of this prophecy represent power alliances that are forming right now. Look at the regional unions developing. Globally, the economic blocs, the supranational structures that are eroding the sovereignty of individual countries. Daniel predicted all this 2,500 years ago. The final little horn, the power that will unify this system, is emerging as we speak. Most alarmingly, this prophecy connects Rome directly to the Antichrist system. The same beast that represented Rome in Daniel reappears in Revelation as the power that will give authority to the final beast. Continuity is undeniable for those who deeply study the scriptures. The transformed Roman system is the very vehicle through which the final deception will be implemented globally. We are witnessing the final phase of this prophecy unfolding before our eyes. Centralized control over nations, economies, and religions is increasing rapidly. The technologies to implement a global surveillance and control system already exist. International legal frameworks for global governance are being established. All of this emerges from the same roots as Daniel's fourth beast, the Roman system that never truly died. When you understand this prophetic connection, world events take on a whole new meaning. These are not just random political developments. They are precise steps in the fulfillment of age-old prophecies. History is moving inexorably towards the climax predicted by Daniel. You have been divinely chosen to know these truths at this critical time. Type "revealed" in the comments if this decoding of Daniel's prophecy has opened your eyes to what's really going on in the world today. The book of Revelation contains a prophetic code that few dare to fully decipher. In chapter 17, John sees a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, adorned with gold and precious stones, with a mysterious name written on her forehead, Babylon the Great. But the key to her true identity is in verse 9, where the angel explains, "The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, which ancient city was world famous for being, built on 7 hills, pomegranate." Known historically as the City of 7 Hills, this is not a forced interpretation, it is an unquestionable historical fact. When John wrote the Apocalypse, he was in exile due to persecution from the Roman Empire. Rome was the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth at that very moment. The prophetic code clearly identifies Rome as the center of power that would oppose God in the last days. But notice how accurate the prophecy is. It is not just political Rome, but a transformation of Rome, a woman, biblical symbol for church, seated in the power of the beast, symbol of empire. Revelation describes this woman dressed in purple and scarlet, exactly the traditional colors of Roman emperors, and later of the church leaders who assumed imperial authority. The connection is so obvious that serious historians cannot deny it. The prophecy shows how Rome's political power would transform into a religious political system that would continue to exercise global dominance. Even more revealing, this woman is called the mother of prostitution, indicating that she would generate corrupt religious systems that would spread throughout the world. She is described as drunk with the blood of the saints, a clear reference to the historical persecutions against true believers who refused to bow to their unbiblical doctrines. The historical accuracy of this prophecy is simply astonishing. Revelation also reveals that this city reigns over the kings of the earth. Even after the political fall of Rome, what other city in the world maintained such influence over world leaders? Which other city receives official visits from practically every head of state? From which city come declarations and encyclicals that shape global policies on critical issues such as the economy, climate, peace, and security? This city's influence on world affairs is exactly as prophesied. The prophecy also shows that this city would be the center of a global economic system. Revelation 18 describes how the merchants of the earth became rich through it, and how its eventual downfall will affect world trade. This is no coincidence. It is an accurate prophetic description of how the Roman system evolved to control global economies. The same financial institutions that dominate the world today have their roots in banking systems developed under Roman influence. Another revealing detail, this city is described as having empire over the kings of the earth. What is the only city in the world that is simultaneously the seat of a global religious power and a sovereign state with diplomatic status? Which city maintains ambassadors to almost every nation on earth? Which city signs concordats and treaties with countries as if it were a world power, despite its tiny territory? Prophetic accuracy is undeniable. The prophetic code of Revelation also reveals that this city would be the center of a global ecumenical movement in the last days. The woman would seek to unite all of her children, creating a worldwide religious unity that would pave the way for the rule of the Antichrist. We are seeing this happen right now, with religious unification initiatives starting exactly from the city identified in the prophecy. Even more alarming, Revelation shows that this city would be the headquarters of the final beast system. The woman rides the beast, symbolizing how religious power uses political authority to implement its goals. This combined system will control who can buy or sell in the end time, exactly what we see developing with centralized digital financial systems and universal biometric identification. The evidence is clear for those who have the courage to see the complete truth. The city of Seven Hills continues to wield extraordinary global power, exactly as predicted in the prophecies. Their influence over governments, economies, and religions is increasing, not decreasing. The code of the apocalypse is being fulfilled before our eyes. Does this revelation awaken in you a new understanding of the gravity of the times in which we live? Share in the comments which prophetic connection about Rome most surprised you and shook your view of current events. The Bible warns of a final world leader, the Antichrist, who will deceive almost all of humanity in the last days, and the scriptures contain a bombshell revelation about his origin. He will emerge from the resurrected Roman system. Daniel 9:26 declares that the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, referring to the destruction of Jerusalem by the Roman armies in 70 AD. The same verse then connects this prince, the Antichrist, to the people who destroyed Jerusalem, the Romans. The prophecy literally states that the Antichrist will come from the Roman system. This connection is reinforced in Revelation 17, where the final beast, the Antichrist system, is described as having 7 heads, the 7 mountains of Rome, and being the color of scarlet, the Roman imperial color. The woman who rides this beast has Rome written all over her, from her location to her robes and her authority over kings. The Antichrist system will not emerge from nowhere. It will emerge from transformed Roman power that never truly lost its global influence. The Apostle Paul also confirms this connection in 2 Thessalonians 2. He describes the man of lawlessness, the Antichrist, as one who sits in the temple of God, presenting himself as though he were God. This usurper will take the place that belongs to Christ alone, claiming universal spiritual authority, just as the Roman system evolved to do. Paul wrote that the mystery of iniquity was already at work in his day, when Rome was the dominant power, but would be fully revealed in later times. A frightening pattern emerges when we carefully study the prophecies. Antichrist will arise from an empire that, in the words of Revelation, was, is not, and yet is. Rome has fallen politically. It is not, but continues to exercise global power through its transformed structures. Yet it is. The Antichrist will be the climax of this system, the final manifestation of resurgent Roman power that will control the entire planet. Another shocking revelation. Daniel 7 shows that the little horn, the power of Antichrist, would arise from among the 10 horns of the 4th beast, Rome. This power would speak words against the Most High and think of changing the times and the law. What power emerged from Rome claimed authority to change divine commandments and establish its own traditions above the Word of God. The historical connection is undeniable for anyone who studies scripture and history without prejudice. The prophet Daniel also saw that this final power would be simultaneously political and religious, mixing iron, political power, with clay, religious element, at the feet of the statue. It would be neither purely secular nor purely religious, but a dangerous combination of both. This fusion of spiritual authority with temporal power is precisely what characterized the transformed Roman system over the centuries, and now, in the last days, it is evolving into its final form, preparing the way for the Antichrist. Revelation 13 confirms this connection by showing that the final beast would receive power, throne, and great authority from the dragon. The same power that previously operated through the Roman Empire. The scriptures draw a direct line connecting the ancient Roman Empire to the final system of Antichrist. The transfer of authority is explicitly prophesied. The power that controlled the world in the days of the apostles would resurface in a final form in the last days. The signs of this connection are everywhere for those who have eyes to see. Watch as world leaders make pilgrimage to the city on 7 hills, seeking approval and blessings. See how global conferences on economics, climate, and politics are increasingly influencing this center of power. Notice how financial systems evolve into centralized digital forms that could easily implement the buying and selling control prophesied in Revelation 13. Everything points to the final phase of the Roman transformation. Even more revealing, the Antichrist is described as a leader who will appear to bring global peace and unity, exactly as the Roman system has always promised through the Pax Romana. He will present solutions to global crises and unify nations under his charismatic leadership. The foundations for this centralized world government are being laid right now, as international organizations gain more and more authority over sovereign nations. This revelation about the Antichrist's Roman connection is deliberately obscured because it exposes the true character of the system that will dominate the world in the last days. The global elites don't want you to notice how prophecies are being fulfilled through the institutions they control. But the truth is in the scriptures, for those who have the courage to study them without denominational filters. The Antichrist will not be a stranger out of nowhere. He will come from the resurrected Roman system that never lost its influence over kings and nations. Understanding this prophetic connection is vital to not being deceived in the final days. Christ warned that the deception would be so sophisticated that, if possible, it would deceive even the elect. Are you prepared to recognize this deception when it reaches its peak? This prophetic knowledge places you among the few who will not be deceived by the beast's final system. Type vigilante in the comments if this revelation about the Antichrist's Roman connection has opened your eyes to the events that are about to unfold on the world stage. The most extraordinary transformation of the Roman Empire was not its fall, but its metamorphosis into a global spiritual power. When Emperor Constantine supposedly converted to Christianity in the 4th century, he wasn't abandoning Rome, he was reinventing it. The title Pontifex Maximus, used by Roman emperors as high priests of paganism, was transferred to state church leaders. The same purple and scarlet robes, the same symbols of authority, the same claims to universal dominion, everything was preserved, just in a new Christian guise. This transformation was not accidental, it was prophesied. Daniel saw that the 4th beast would be different from all that came before. It would not disappear completely like other empires, but it would evolve into a new, more lasting form. Rome's political power merged with religious authority, creating a hybrid system that would dominate the world for centuries. The deadly wound has been healed. Rome has re-emerged as a global spiritual power. The Vatican is the only sovereign state within a state in the entire world. What other religious entity has the status of a nation, with the right to ambassadors, passports, and international diplomatic recognition? This peculiarity is no coincidence. It is the precise fulfillment of the prophecy that describes the woman, symbol of church, who reigns over the kings of the earth. Vatican City literally fits every prophetic detail, from its location on the 7 hills to its extraordinary global power. Revelation 17 describes the woman clothed in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. Compare this description with the visible reality of the official vestments, architecture, and ceremonies of the Vatican. The precision is undeniable. The prophecy was not speaking of an invisible secret power, but of an entity clearly identifiable by the external symbols it carries. The woman is literally dressed in the Roman imperial colors, scarlet and purple. Even more revealing, notice how this small state exerts disproportionate influence on world affairs. What other religious entity receives official visits from virtually every world leader? What other institution issues statements that shape global policies on the economy, climate, peace, and family? The prophecy declares that this woman would have empire over the kings of the earth, and the Vatican maintains diplomatic relations with more than 180 nations. Your power to influence global decisions is exactly as prophesied. The prophecy also reveals that this religious power would think to change the times and the law. Historically, the Vatican actually altered the religious calendar, replacing the biblical Sabbath with Sunday and incorporating pagan festivals with Christian names. He changed divine law itself, modifying the Ten Commandments in its official catechisms. This is not a sectarian attack. It is the historical documentation of the exact fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy about the little horn that would arise from the Roman Empire. Even more astonishing, the Vatican is the only religious power in the world that simultaneously claims universal spiritual authority and maintains sovereign state status. This unique combination of spiritual and temporal power is precisely what the prophecies describe for the system that would prepare the way for the Antichrist. The beast, political power, and the woman, religious power, cooperating to dominate the world, exactly as we see. Another crucial prophetic detail: the Vatican is currently leading the largest ecumenical movement in history, seeking to bring all religions under its influence. This perfectly fulfills the prophecy that woman would be mother of whoredoms, generating compromised religious systems that would eventually reunite under her leadership. The effort to unify Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and other religions into a global system is accelerating, just as predicted for the final days. The Vatican's own administrative structure reveals its Roman connection. The Roman Curia, central government, still uses Latin terminology and preserves structures that date back to the ancient empire. Cardinals are called princes of the Church, echoing the titles of the Roman nobility. Even the term pope comes from the Latin papa, a title of authority used in the empire. Continuity is undeniable for anyone who studies history without prejudice. The transfer of the imperial capital from Rome to Constantinople, now Istanbul, in the 4th century, opened space for papal power to fill the vacuum left by emperors in the West. This historical development perfectly fulfilled the prophecy that the impediment, imperial power, would be pushed aside to make room for the man of lawlessness, 2 Thessalonians 2. Paul was describing precisely how the transformation of Rome would occur, imperial power giving way to papal power taking over its prerogatives. This prophetic truth about the Vatican as a transformed continuation of the Roman Empire is not an attack on sincere Catholics. It is a biblical warning about a system that has strayed from its apostolic foundations. Christ loves every person within this system and calls his people out of it before the final judgments. Revelation 18:4. This revelation is not about condemning individuals, but about exposing a prophetically identified system that will play a crucial role in final events. Share in the comments which historical connection between Rome and the Vatican most impressed you when realizing this prophetic continuity. Revelation 13 contains one of the most terrifying prophecies in the Bible, the implementation of a global system that will control who can buy or sell. The prophecy describes a power that will force all, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. This is not a dark prophecy about the past. It is a clear warning about a system of total control that will be implemented in the last days. And the evidence indicates that the infrastructure for this system is already being established before our eyes. What few realize is the direct connection between this mark system and resurrected Roman power. Revelation 13 shows that the mark will be implemented by the second beast, religious power, acting on behalf of the first beast, political power, exactly the pattern of the Roman transformation we have seen. The same city on 7 hills that John identified as the center of global power, in recent days, is now leading initiatives to unify financial systems and create global governance structures. Note the haunting historical parallel. The ancient Roman Empire controlled trade through its official currency. No one could legally buy or sell without using Roman money bearing the emperor's image. This was literally a system where the image of the beast dominated all economic transactions. Now, in recent days, a similar but infinitely more sophisticated system is being developed. Centrally controlled digital currencies that could easily implement restrictions on who can participate in the economy. The technology to implement the mark of the beast simply did not exist until our generation. Now, for the first time in human history, We have the technical ability to track and control all financial transactions globally. Biometric identification, digital currencies, Internet of Things, ubiquitous surveillance. All the necessary infrastructure for the prophesied system is being rapidly implemented under the guise of convenience and security. Even more revealing, who is leading many of these initiatives to centralize financial systems and create universal digital identification? The same power structures that emerged from the transformed Roman Empire. The city of Seven Hills is actively promoting global financial inclusion, integral economics, and other initiatives that, although they sound beneficial, are laying the foundation for unprecedented, centralized economic control. Prophecy indicates that this final system will mix economic, religious, and political elements, exactly what we are witnessing. Official Vatican documents on the global economy now promote a world political authority with real powers to govern the global economy. This fusion of spiritual power with economic and political control is precisely what Revelation describes for the mark of the beast system. Watch how the pandemic has dramatically accelerated the transition to a cashless society. The same institutions that John prophetically identified are now at the forefront promoting digital currencies and global identity passports that could easily become the mechanism for implementing restrictions on who can buy or sell. The justification always sounds reasonable: security, convenience, inclusion, but the end result is exactly the global control system prophesied. The prophecy warns that the mark will involve worship of the beast and his image. This indicates that the final system will have a religious component in addition to the economic one. It will not just be about money, but about loyalty to a system that opposes God's commandments. Revelation 14:12 identifies God's people in the last days as those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, in direct opposition to those who accept the mark. Consider this. The ancient Roman Empire required all citizens to participate in the imperial cult and recognize the emperor as divine. Those who refused faced economic and social exclusion, often not being able to buy or sell. This same pattern will resurface in the last days through the transformed Roman system. The brand will not simply be a technological device, but a symbol of loyalty to a religious political system that opposes divine law. The essential elements are already coming together: a global power centered in the city of Seven Hills, technology to track all financial transactions, moves to unify religions under a single authority, and global crises providing justification for implementing unprecedented controls. The infrastructure for the brand system is being built right now, disguised as technological progress and economic integration. This revelation is not to cause panic, but to warn God's people of what is coming. Revelation not only warns of the mark of the beast, but also promises that those who remain faithful to divine commandments will be protected. Christ is preparing a people who will stand firm even when they cannot buy or sell without compromising their loyalty to God. This prophetic understanding is crucial to not being deceived when the system reaches its fullest. The technology itself is not the brand, it is just the mechanism through which the system will be implemented. The central question will be about worship and obedience. To whom will you give your ultimate allegiance? To God's commandments or to the demands of a human system? This will be the dividing line in the final events of earthly history. Type "ready" in the comments if this revelation about the mark of the beast system has opened your eyes to what is really unfolding behind today's technological and financial innovations. Matter of spiritual life or death. Those who recognize these signs and understand their meaning will be prepared to remain faithful when the final deception reaches its climax. Christ warned that the deception would be so sophisticated that, if possible, it would deceive even the elect. Clear prophetic understanding is our protection against this deception. Share in the comments which of these signs of the Roman resurgence you see most clearly in today's world, showing that we are truly in the final phase of history. The prophetic signs are aligning with astonishing precision, showing that we are living in the final phase of Earth's history. We are not only close to the fulfillment of the prophecies about the resurgence of Rome, we are witnessing it unfold before our eyes. The convergence of multiple prophetic signs in this generation is unprecedented and points unequivocally to the climax of human history. The most telling sign is the global reshaping of Roman power exactly as prophesied. Daniel saw that the Fourth World Empire would be unlike all that had come before and would continue until the end. Political Rome fell, but its power turned into a political religious influence that has shaped history for centuries. Now, in the last days, it is evolving into its final form, a global system that combines spiritual authority with economic and political control. Notice how globalization is literally recreating the concept of world empire that Rome exemplified. National borders are being progressively diluted, with power being transferred to supranational institutions. The world is being unified under common systems of governance, economics, and values, just as Rome did on its territory. This global unification is no coincidence. It is the precise fulfillment of the prophecy about the final phase of Roman power. Daniel 7:23 describes the fourth beast as devouring the whole earth, a perfect description of today's globalization that homogenizes cultures and subordinates sovereign nations to international authorities. The global institutions that dominate economics, politics, and legislation today are direct extensions of the transformed Roman system. The growing power of entities such as the UN, IMF, World Bank, and international courts over individual nations fulfills exactly what Daniel predicted about the final phase of the fourth beast. Revelation 17 prophesies that the 10 kings will eventually hand over their power and authority to the beast. We are witnessing this right now as sovereign nations voluntarily cede authority to supranational bodies. International treaties increasingly override national constitutions. The concept of national sovereignty is being gradually eroded in favor of global governance, just as predicted for the final days. Another unmistakable sign is the global religious unification centered on the city of 7 hills. Revelation describes the woman who rides the beast, symbolizing how spiritual authority would ally with governments in the last days. The largest ecumenical movement in history is taking place right now, with the Vatican leading initiatives to unify Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, and other religions under common principles. The Fratelli Tutti Declaration and other similar initiatives are explicitly promoting a universal brotherhood and global religion that transcends doctrinal differences. This movement to create a unified religious platform that would support a world government is precisely what Revelation prophesied about the alliance between the woman and the beast in the end days. Religious unification under Roman leadership is accelerating like never before. Current technology also confirms that we are in the final phase. For the first time in human history, we have the technical ability to implement the mark of the beast system described in Revelation 13, global biometric identification, centrally controlled digital currencies, ubiquitous surveillance, the Internet of Things. All the infrastructure needed to control who can buy or sell already exists. The Vatican itself has actively promoted initiatives for global financial inclusion and unified economic systems. The global crises of recent years have dramatically accelerated these developments. Pandemics, climate instability, regional conflicts, and economic turmoil have created the perfect environment to implement unprecedented controls and promote global centralized solutions. These crises are not random. They are prophesied catalysts that are quickly setting the conditions for the final beast system. Perhaps the most significant sign is the intensified focus on Rome as a center for global solutions. World leaders from all nations, religions, and spheres of influence are increasingly converging on the city of 7 hills, seeking moral guidance and solutions to global crises. Conferences on climate, economics, peace, and human values are being held under Vatican auspices with unprecedented frequency. This central role of Rome in shaping the global future is exactly what the prophecies predicted. The acceleration of these signals is perhaps the most convincing indicator that we are in the final phase. Daniel 12:4 prophesied that in the last days, knowledge would increase and many would run to and fro. The explosion of scientific, technological, and even prophetic knowledge in the last 100 years surpasses anything that occurred in the previous 6,000 years of human history. Global mobility and instantaneous dissemination of information literally fulfill this prophecy. Christ declared in Matthew 24 that when we saw all these signs converging, we would know that his coming is at hand. We are not just seeing isolated signs. We are witnessing the simultaneous convergence of all prophetic markers in a single generation. The mathematical probability of this occurring by chance is virtually zero. We are unequivocally living in the prophesied time for the final resurgence of Roman power and the establishment of the beast system. This understanding of prophetic signs is not just fascinating information. It is literally a matter of spiritual life and death. Those who recognize these signs and understand their meaning will be prepared to remain faithful when the final deception reaches its climax. Christ warned that the deception would be so sophisticated that, if possible, it would deceive even the elect. The prophetic knowledge you have gained today is your protection against this final deception. This understanding of current signs awakens in you a new spiritual urgency that few experience. Share in the comments which of these prophetic signs you have already noticed in our current society, even without realizing their connection with the prophecies about Rome. This prophetic revelation about Rome is not just fascinating theory. It directly impacts your life, your family, and your eternal destiny. While many Christians are distracted by material prosperity or secondary theological debates, the prophesied system is quickly taking hold around us all. The choices you make now, based on this prophetic knowledge, will determine which side you will be on when these events reach their climax. Christ warned that the last days would be marked by unprecedented deception. He declared in Matthew 24:24 that false Christs and false prophets would perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. This is no trivial threat. It is a divine warning about a deception so sophisticated, so persuasive, that only those firmly anchored in prophetic truth will escape. The resurgence of Roman power in its final form will be accompanied by supernatural phenomena that will convince millions. Revelation 13:13-14 reveals that the second beast would do great signs, so that he even causes fire to come down from heaven to the earth in the sight of men and deceives those who dwell on the earth. Supernatural manifestations will validate the resurrected Roman system in the eyes of the world. Only those who know the prophecies will understand that these miracles are not from God, but part of the final deception. This prophetic knowledge you are now receiving is literally your protection against the greatest deception in human history. Your daily life is already being impacted by this developing system. The increasing censorship of biblical truths, the marginalization of traditional Christian values, the social pressure to conform to global agendas, these are all early manifestations of what the prophecies describe for the end days. As the resurrected Roman system gains power, those who remain faithful to God's commandments will face increasing opposition. Revelation 13:17 warns that there will come a time when no one will be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. This is no metaphor. It is a literal description of the economic exclusion that will come upon those who refuse to compromise their loyalty to God. The infrastructure to implement these restrictions already exists and is being rapidly expanded. What will you do when faced with the choice between providing for your family or remaining faithful to God's commandments? This is the most important decision any human being will face. The good news is that God has promised special protection for his people in the end times. Daniel 12:1 declares that, "At that time, Michael will arise, the great prince, who stands for the children of your people. But at that time your people will be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book." Christ will not abandon those who remain faithful during the final crisis. He will provide for his remnant even when they are excluded from the world economic system. Revelation 12 describes how God will sustain his people during the final persecution. The woman will flee to the desert, where God will sustain her. This is not a promise of escape from hard times, but of divine sustenance during them. Those who know and act upon prophetic truth will survive the ultimate deception and persecution that will come through the resurrected Roman system. Christ gave us these prophecies not to scare us, but to prepare us. He declared in John 16:33, "In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good courage. I have overcome the world." Knowing the prophetic plan gives us confidence in the midst of turbulence. We can face the future without fear because we know the end result. Christ will return, destroy the final Roman system, and establish his eternal kingdom. The urgency of these times demands immediate action. Revelation 18:4 contains an urgent divine call. Come out of her, my people, so that you will not be partakers of her sins, and that you will not receive her plagues. God is calling his people to completely separate themselves from the resurrected Roman Babylonian system. This separation is not just physical, but spiritual, a complete rejection of unbiblical doctrines and practices that originated in transformed Roman power. This separation begins with a commitment to follow biblical truth, regardless of the consequences. It means examining every belief and practice in light of Scripture, not human tradition. It means keeping all of God's commandments, including those that the Roman system changed. It means cultivating a deep, personal relationship with Christ that can withstand the pressures of the last days. The time for this separation and preparation is now. We cannot wait until the final crisis arrives. Then it will be too late to develop the character and understanding needed to remain faithful. The choices you make today, based on this prophetic knowledge, will determine your destiny when the system of the beast is fully implemented. This is literally the most important knowledge you could receive at this time in human history. Christ himself is preparing a people to stand in these end times. Revelation 14:12 identifies this remnant as those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. They will not bow to the pressures of the resurrected Roman system, even when it means economic exclusion and persecution. Your loyalty to God and his truth will remain unshakable. This prophetic revelation has deeply touched your conscience, and you feel the divine call to be part of this faithful remnant in the final days. Type "decided" in the comments right now to declare your commitment to remain faithful to biblical truth, no matter the cost or consequences. We have reached the crux of this prophetic revelation about Rome. What will you do with this transformative knowledge? This isn't just another interesting theory, it's the key to understanding the events that will determine your eternal destiny. The prophecies of Daniel and Revelation were preserved through the centuries precisely for this final generation that would witness their complete fulfillment. You have been divinely directed to this message because you have a role to play in the final events of Earth's history. The Roman Empire never truly fell. It transformed just as the prophecies predicted, first in a political religious power centered in the Vatican, and now evolving into its final form as a global system that will unify government, religion, and economy under a single authority. All historical evidence, all current trends, all technological developments converge to confirm this prophetic truth. Rome is resurfacing in its final form, preparing the way for the Antichrist. The implications are enormous. You are witnessing the final alignment of the prophetic pieces before the return of Christ. The city of 7 hills continues to exert unprecedented global influence. The 10 kings are emerging through alliances and power blocks that will eventually hand over their authority to the beast. The technology to implement the brand system already exists. The ecumenical movement is unifying religions under Roman leadership. Everything is converging exactly as the scriptures predicted millennia ago. Christ warned that the deception of the last days would be so sophisticated that, if possible, it would deceive even the elect. This deception will not come as an obvious denial of faith, but as a subtle counterfeit, an apparent Christianity that contradicts God's commandments. The resurrected Roman system will feature miracles, supernatural signs, and calls for unity that will convince millions. Only those firmly anchored in prophetic truth and committed to all of God's commandments will resist. The divine call is clear and urgent. Come out of her, my people. God is calling his remnant to completely separate themselves from the Roman Babylonian system before the final judgments fall. This separation means rejecting unbiblical doctrines and practices that originated from transformed Roman power. It means returning to the purity of the apostolic faith, keeping all of God's commandments as revealed in the scriptures, not as modified by human traditions. Revelation 14:6-12 describes the final message that will be proclaimed globally before Christ returns. It is a call to worship the Creator, to leave fallen Babylon, and to keep the commandments of God and faith in Jesus. This is the message you are hearing now. This is no coincidence. It is the fulfillment of the prophecy that this truth would be restored and proclaimed in the last days. The mark of the beast system is being rapidly implemented through digital technologies, biometric identification, and centrally controlled digital currencies. The time will soon come when no one will be able to buy or sell without participating in this system. The choices you make now will determine your ability to remain faithful when this crisis reaches its climax. This is the time to develop unshakable faith, clear prophetic understanding, and complete dependence on God. Revelation 15:2 describes a special group in heaven, those who have gained victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name. These are the faithful who remained loyal to God during the final crisis. They understood the prophecies, recognized the Roman resurgence, refused to accept the mark, and maintained their integrity even when it meant economic exclusion and persecution. Will you be among them? This is literally the most important decision you will face in your entire life. The time for spiritual preparation is now. Revelation 22:11 describes a solemn moment when it will be declared, "He that is unrighteous, let him do unrighteousness still. He that is filthy, let him be filthy still. He that is righteous, let him do righteousness still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still." There will come a time when destinies will be sealed, when character will be fixed for eternity. Preparation cannot be delayed until the final crisis. It must occur now, through diligent study of the Word, fervent prayer, and loving obedience to all of God's commandments. Christ promised special power to his people in the last days. The same prophetic message that warns of the Roman resurgence also promises the outpouring of the Holy Spirit to enable final testimony. Revelation 18:1 describes an angel descending from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. This is the final outpouring of the Spirit that will enable the faithful remnant to proclaim the truth with supernatural power, even in the face of opposition from the resurrected Roman system. The final promise to those who remain faithful is glorious beyond imagination. Revelation 21:22 describes the new Jerusalem, the renewed earth, and eternity with Christ. Every suffering, every persecution, every hardship faced by the faithful remnant will seem insignificant compared to the eternal glory that awaits. Christ will return, destroy the final Roman system, and establish his never-ending kingdom. By remaining faithful now, we secure our place in this eternal kingdom. This prophetic revelation about Rome is not the end. It is just the beginning of your journey to understand and prepare for the final events. Share this urgent message with everyone you love. They also need this protective knowledge before the final deception reaches its climax. Prophetic truth was not given just for our information, but for our transformation and testimony. You now have a solemn responsibility to live and share this truth that can literally save lives for eternity. This prophetic truth you have just received is just the tip of the iceberg. An even more powerful revelation is about to completely transform your understanding of the times in which we live. The final piece of the prophetic puzzle awaits you, and when it is revealed, absolutely everything will make sense. The connections between Babylon and today's global financial system will shake the fabric of your understanding and fully prepare you for the impending events. You are now part of a prophetic awakening movement that is growing exponentially in these last moments of history. Every person who subscribes to the channel strengthens this community of vigilantes who will not be fooled by the resurrected Roman system. Sign up now and turn on all notifications to become a pillar in this army of truth that is being raised for precisely this time. Your testimony of how this revelation impacted your life has the power to awaken others who are still spiritually asleep. When you share your perspective, you multiply the reach of this vital message that literally saves lives for eternity. Leave in the comments how this prophetic truth transformed your view of current world events. Every like you give to this video is a blow against the system of deception that wants to keep these prophetic truths hidden. The algorithm immediately expands the reach of the message, allowing it to reach people predestined to receive it at this crucial moment. Click the like button now and become an active part of spreading this urgent truth. The final pieces of this prophetic puzzle are being put into place immediately after this video. The connection between the global financial system, the mark of the beast, and the power of modern Babylon is ready to be revealed. Click on the next video now to discover the most shocking revelation of all, the one that absolutely no one is talking about, but which perfectly explains the events unfolding before your eyes.